Something I've been thinking about lately is the concept that only you know what really makes you happy. And what I mean by that is we receive a lot of advice in our lives from other people. A lot of people telling us what they think is going to be best for us. And I think that deep down we have to accept the fact that only we know what is really going to make us happy, and it doesn't matter what other advice people give us. We have to make that call for ourselves. Now, some of those people who give us advice could be trusted people, they could be trusted family members, and we value their opinion. But even then, they really don't know what it is that's generally going to make us happy, and they might give us advice thinking that they're with the best will in the world, thinking that they're helping us. But then if we follow their advice, it's going to leave us feeling empty or unhappy. I mean, look at the example of taking a particular job. Now, somebody might give you the advice and say, I really think the best thing you can do is take that job, because at least then all your bills are being paid and you're going to be happy because your bills are being paid. But they don't know deep down inside that perhaps just paying bills isn't going to make you happy. You want more from your job, and that just going to a job that you don't like just to pay the bills is going to leave you feeling miserable. So I think we have to kind of learn to filter the advice that we're receiving. I'm not necessarily saying that that we have to completely disregard every bit of advice we ever hear. And as I said before, some people are genuinely trying to help us, but I think we have to realise that we're the only ones who know what's going to make us happy, and sometimes it can be very hard to express that to other people when they're trying to help you and they're trying to give you advice. It's very, very hard to tell them how you actually feel about that, because a lot of the times we don't even know ourselves. A lot of times somebody might say to you, take that job and all your bills will be paid and you'll be happy. And at the time you might sort of think to yourself, well, yeah, actually perhaps that might make me happy. But then after you've been at that job for a few weeks or a few months, suddenly that thing creeps back in again, and then you think to yourself, well, no, actually, just paying the bills wasn't what I wanted at all. I was already paying the bills in my old job, but there was still a reason why I left my old job, and it's because I wasn't feeling happy with what I was doing. So it can be difficult, and it doesn't just have to be about jobs. Sometimes we could receive advice about relationships, or receive advice about deciding where to live or something. There's, when it comes to choosing somewhere to live, you see all these kind of polls and lists on the internet telling you about the 10 best places to live in your country, or the 10 happiest places to live, or the 10 places where people get the most satisfaction. But again, you could go to the number one place on that list for happiness and then find that it just doesn't gel with you at all. If you're a city person, then you might want to be living in the country, or if you're a country person, you might want to be living in the city, regardless of how many coffee shops there are and whatever other amenities there might be. If that just doesn't gel with you, it doesn't gel with you. So I think what we have to try and do is learn to trust our own feelings, and sort of not be afraid to say to people, look, I appreciate that you're trying to help, but I'm the one who knows what's best for me, and I know how this is going to make me feel if I do this. And although you say to the person giving the advice, and although you can't necessarily see my point of view is the only one that actually matters, to me internally, how I feel. And it's one of these tricky situations. Obviously, if the person giving you the advice is a spouse or a partner, and the decision you make is going to affect both of you, then you do have to sort of combine your minds, sort of thing, and try to come to a common understanding. But if the advice is just coming from some adjacent family member or a friend who, like I say, thinks they're being helpful because they're telling you what they would do in your situation, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. What makes them happy might be something completely different to what makes you happy, even if on the surface it seems like you share common interests and you should have the same mindset. But deep down in your internal dialogue, only you really know what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you want to get up in the morning and approach life, and what makes you want to stay in bed and just hide under the covers again. So, it's one of these things that I kind of mull over in my mind. Have you ever, do you ever have these similar things? How do you handle the advice that people give you? Do you just do you openly accept it, or do you kind of take all those ideas, put them in a pot, and then carefully vet each one and make a decision yourself? I mean, obviously, peer pressure can be a difficult thing. It's easy to get forced into things we don't want to do. Sometimes it's not even friends. Sometimes it's not even people who you necessarily care about their opinion. For example, if in the UK here, if you're unemployed and you're claiming unemployment benefits, then it's basically the rules state that in order to get those benefits, you have to make regular visits to the job centre where they will give you helpful advice to help you find a job and get back in work, so that you're not claiming the money anymore, which on the surface seems good, and I'm sure it looks good on paper to get people employed again and earning money as quickly as possible. But if those people then just completely crash out again, well, it didn't really solve the problem. It was a temporary thing, but it never really solved the underlying problem of why that person was struggling in the first place. So yeah, I think nowadays, and especially in this day and age now where we're just being bombarded with information, we can go on social media, we can go on YouTube, we can go various places on the internet where we're being bombarded with other people's thoughts and other people's advice. I mean, it's one of the reasons why in these videos I try to avoid preaching or giving advice now. I'm trying to sort of say this is how I feel, and it might resonate with you, but I don't want to be one of those people who says this is what you have to do, this is how you fix this problem, because to be quite honest, I don't know if what's needed to fix whatever you might be going through. Sometimes it's difficult to work out how to fix what I'm going through. So I try to avoid being an advice giver now. In the past, I sort of slipped into that trap where I was preaching at people, but I don't think that helps people. The days of blindly following somebody else's sermon or somebody else's lecture, I think those days are gone, and we have to start taking, without putting it bluntly, taking care of number one, and and accepting that we're the ones who know how we feel, and that we've got to trust our own judgment. But let me know if you have any views on this subject. Do you feel comfortable relying on your own judgment, or do you feel more comfortable having somebody make these decisions for you, or at least give you some advice. I mean, sometimes, and I'm not saying this is everybody's experience, but sometimes people like to have that responsibility taken away from them. I think sometimes some people feel better if somebody else makes a decision for them, because then when they're unhappy they can blame somebody else. It's sometimes difficult to blame ourselves for making a bad decision, because that's what comes with taking that responsibility. We're trusting our own judgment, but on the other hand, if it doesn't work out, the blame has to rest solely with us. We can't blame anybody else to say, oh well, so and so told me to do that, or I read this thing here that said this was the way to solve this problem. We have to sort of bite the bullet and accept it. So yeah, let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts on this. Again, something I mull over in my mind, but I'd like to know what other people feel about it. So yeah, let me know. And until next time, take care of yourself the best way you know how.